Yes, brothers and sisters, how are you doing today? I hope everyone is good and doing well. Now, most of you wanted me to comment about this IMF loan of $1 billion that was given to Uganda, uh, just to help it to manage the COVID-19 situation. Now, we all understand that the IMF had initially given Uganda, I think, 489 million million US dollars last year to help to combat COVID-19. Unfortunately, all that money was eaten by Museveni and his friends, as well as his family. Ugandans all over the world, especially in the diaspora, as well as on social media, put a lot of pressure on IMF not to give Museveni money, because we know that the first installment, so the first help that they gave him, number one, he misused it. So this one was not going to be any different. So Ugandans told the IMF, and they sent a lot of messages on Twitter, Facebook, email to block this money, but they refused to find other mechanisms on how Museveni on how they can help Ugandans, but not giving Museveni money directly. Because we all understand Museveni's priorities are never in health or education or any of these sectors that are actually beneficial to Ugandans in totality. Museveni's priorities are individual priorities as well as militaristic and the army priorities. That's why we see that in Uganda's budget, there is a lot of money in each and every year ever since he came to power in 1986. Always the military budget as well as the defense budget has more money than any other sector in the country. Now that we are facing COVID-19 situation, Museveni cannot even remove a single penny from the Ministry of Defense or the Ministry of Internal Affairs or in all these other sectors that are irrelevant at the moment. Even building roads it's irrelevant right now. All these other things, buying cars and paying salaries to his state house staffers and all this kind of stuff, all that crap is irrelevant because he has a huge patronage network and he has to feed it and give it money and keep it happy all the time. So all the money that he gets from abroad, he uses that money in order to fulfill all these kind of individualistic appetites that he has of his own. Now, for those of you who should understand that Uganda's, by the Auditor General recently released the report, Mr. John Mwanga, saying that Uganda's was about to hit the debt ceiling. By the time he made those statements, I think it was around earlier this year, Uganda had hit 41%, and saying that if we hit 50%, that means that we can no longer borrow any money internationally. Now, that would mean that Uganda would be put under either World Bank receivership or IMF receivership in one way or the other. All assets of Uganda would be taken, and receivership in terms of bringing in international experts from World Bank or IMF to do some sort of economic readjustments so as to bring the country's debt down, because as we speak today, the debt in Uganda is unsustainable. Now, about this IMF loan, Uganda was given $1 billion, and that is an amount, it amounts to 3.5 trillion Ugandan shillings. In relation, Uganda's budget is, I think, 45 trillion Ugandan shillings. So that is around, the money that was given to Uganda is around what, 2 or 3% of Uganda's budget. It was given and it is interest free, but has to be repaid back in 10 years. Secondly, this money, it is going to be given in installments of with the first installment that was given was around 285 million US dollars, and other installments will be given in the period of 3 years. Now, the other issue that you have to understand is that the IMF has said that it is going to be monitoring or evaluating this loan on a quarterly basis. That means after 3 months, they will be evaluating the loan, whether the money has been put to good use or not. IMF, you don't need even to evaluate, but I can guarantee you this. If you look closely enough, this money is going to be mismanaged, and it is already being mismanaged. I cannot give Museveni a benefit of doubt. For the past 35 years, we Ugandans have given him a benefit of doubt, but he has failed even on the simplest of matters. First and foremost, Uganda didn't need this loan. But in this circumstance, we have two individuals. We have a person known as, you see, when you are dealing with a person who has an addiction, especially if it's a drug addiction, we have a person called the dealer. The dealer is the one who sells the drugs. And then we have a person known as the user. The user is the person who takes the drugs. So the user is the person who is addicted to the drugs, whereas the dealer does not use his own produce or he doesn't get high on his own product. He knows the people who get high, and for that matter, he benefits. So in this circumstance, we are talking about the IMF. So how does the IMF benefit from this loan? And on the other hand, Museveni is damned because there is no way he's benefiting from this loan, because he is bad at managing debt. He is bad at managing loans. Because look here, did Uganda really need the IMF loan? Absolutely not. It is all about the user. It's all about the addict to say that, okay, I'm kicking up this type of addiction. I'm no longer going to be taking booze. I'm no longer going to get addicted to cocaine or heroin or this kind of stuff. And then start a withdrawal mechanism or a withdrawal kind of way to stop taking these drugs. Now, this is what is interesting. The budget has a lot of irrelevant issues at the moment. Uganda doesn't need roads. Uganda doesn't need anything like construction because people are not even moving. Uganda doesn't need the money to pay them, like buying aeroplanes or MiGs or buying all these artilleries. We don't need all that money, but there's a lot of money allocated towards that. That's why we have a very, very big budget on the defense kind of stuff, and yet we are not even at war. The war we have is COVID. But they cannot shift or reallocate any of the money that is in the budget and say, okay, this ministry is not going to be working for this whole year. If we do not solve COVID, this ministry will not work. So let's get this money and put it in this particular area. They can't do that. But because Museveni is an addict of drugs and an addict of debt, he decides to go for a shot that he needs to get himself high. Now, for the dealer, he knows very well that, look here, I need the money, number one, and also I need to put other dealers out of business. So the other dealers that we are talking about in this situation is the Chinese. You all understand that the Chinese have had a program in Africa and have clearly stamped, they had successfully stamped the G7 countries as well as the Americans out of the continent through their loans that had no strings attached, but with a high interest rate, number one, through their loans that were easily accessible with no strings attached, quote unquote, because there is no one that can give you free money, even if the loan that was given to Uganda is interest free, but it's not free at the end of the day. But for the Chinese loans, they had a lot of interest, number one, but secondly, the loans were also though they say they no strings attached in terms of democratic issues, but they were strings attached. So the Chinese were building roads all over the continent. They were building railways and airports and all this kind of stuff. So the Americans looked at the Chinese presence in Africa as a threat. Now, this is what happened. In IMF, there are so many countries that contribute a lot of money for the members. I think there are around 16 members, but America is the biggest contributor. It contributes around 17% of the money in IMF. It means that it has a very big say whenever they are voting on which countries to give money and which ones not to give money. So because America under the Biden administration, they are trying to counter China on a global scale, so they are using each and every mechanism they can to entrap people or to kick other dealers out of different areas. Or different areas that they regard as their different areas of operation. Now, you should understand that the reason as to why Museveni was given money is not because the Americans gave this money in good faith. No. Because if they wanted to give money in good faith, or if IMF wanted to give this loan in good faith, the way they gave the loan to Museveni is not the way it should have been done. Number one, they should have made Museveni to cut his budget on the defense, to make cuts in his budget and look for money from these different sectors, and then the IMF would have added on that particular money. Because that's how you help a country, right? That's how you help. You cannot say that, okay, let us add you $1 billion, but then you leave the Ministry of Defense having over $50 million in its budget, and yet the Ministry of Health is having $20 million. You're not helping. So they are feeding a behavior whereby Museveni is going to use this same money to recruit more soldiers to beat Ugandans like he beats his cows in Rachtura. That's what is going to happen. Now, So the Chinese interference or the Chinese influence on the continent of Africa is what prompted these Americans, sorry, the IMF, to give third world countries, because so many countries got these loans, Egypt and all this kind of stuff. They all got the money. And you can see most of these countries, either they are totalitarian or authoritarian dictatorships in one way or the other. So, it is really sad that they gave this loan, and we know that it's going to be misused. Now, the other issue that we see that why they gave the loan out is because they want to enslave the continent, or they want to enslave third world countries to keep them in third world status. Because here you have dictators who are addicted to loans, like Museveni, and so you have these people who are determined to keep Africans and keep the continent in a strictly subordinate role. So it's like a match made in heaven. You only, because Museveni is always telling, oh, Americans, you are this and this. Oh, you British, you are zero. You are this. You are fools. You want to steal our resources. You want to take this and this and that. Look here, bro. What is happening is this. This Museveni guy is getting high on these people's product, and he in return is abusing them, using their product. So after giving them the loan, after giving Museveni the loan, he now goes out and starts to abuse them on the product that they gave him. Now, the Chinese are looking for other circumstances. They have realized that, look here, dealing with the dictators, the political instability on the continent of Africa is really not worthwhile doing business. It is a very, very difficult environment because of dictators, too much corruption, too many kickbacks. It is really, really expensive. How do we recoup it? We don't even have guarantee that we shall have our money back, because these people who are running these countries, for them, all they look for is a quick fix. Take the shot, take the drugs, and then think about the rest. In future, you don't have to think about anything like repayment and all that kind of stuff today. So that is why these people actually, we see that Uganda received this loan. I believe that Ugandans who have been protesting, you have done a lot of work, and that is why the IMF has now put, quite twisted, a wee bit twisted, more twisted, more twisted terms on these loans, especially by reviewing them, not giving them in a lump sum, number one. Secondly, is making sure that these loans are reviewed on a quarterly basis after 3 months. So what our role to do is to monitor the money that was given to Museveni, see the people who are taking contracts, see how he is using the money, and then we go back, head back, retreat, and then head back on these IMF headquarters and all these other places and protest, because I can guarantee you very well that these people are going to misuse this money. Trust me, they are going to misuse this money. And when they misuse this money, trust me, they will have played right in our hands. And I know it's going to happen. This is Uganda. I know very well. And now, by taking this loan, Museveni, who is talking about Pan-Africanism and who is saying that he no longer wants the influence of the whites, he's taking their money, and now he's being enslaved or debt-trapped. Now, who is the superpower here? Is it the IMF that is giving, IMF members that are giving Museveni money, or is it Museveni? How many times have you seen Museveni giving the UK aid money? How many times have you seen him giving the US money? None. Everyone is demanding Uganda. Even Democratic Republic of Congo is demanding Uganda 3.5 billion Ugandan 3.5 trillion. Sorry, 3.5 billion US dollars. For what? That Ugandans went into Congo and looted the country. But it's not Ugandans that benefited out of the loot. It is Museveni himself that went there with his brother Salim Saleh. They stole gold, timber, women, everything. They got so rich. And then the ICJ is putting the crime on us Ugandans. They know the people whom they are supposed to go after. You have to go after Museveni, because they are the ones that benefit from these loans, or from the loot that they took out of Zaire. The same thing is going to happen with the loans that Museveni and his cabal of people have eaten under his regime, either from the Chinese or from the G7 countries or IMF or World Bank. The loans never benefited Ugandans. The loans are benefiting individuals. And if you are asking for a payback, you should go after their assets. As simple as that. Because if you do not do that, well, you're not going to get paid back. because no Ugandan can afford to pay you back. As I speak right now, every Ugandan has a debt of 3.5 million Ugandan shillings. That is around 1,200 US dollars. That's a lot of money for people who live on less than a pence, on less than 50 pence per day. We still have people who are starving in Karamoja and all these other areas. And then you want me, every Ugandan is indebted to 1,200 US dollars per year. Sorry, per person, even the unborn. That's the situation in which we are in. I don't know if you guys have understood my explanation about, or my comments about the IMF loan. In summary, number one, Uganda never needed the loan because we have money. What Uganda needed was to carry out austerity measures and reallocate money in different sectors and raise this money, because that is little money. 3.5 trillion is little money out of the 45 trillion from the... You mean 45 trillion as a budget of Uganda? You mean we couldn't look somewhere there and make some cuts and then get that money, collect that 3.5 trillion and then reallocate it to COVID? No, it is because Museveni is addicted. He's an addict. He's addicted to cocaine or heroin or methamphetamine, those drugs. Metaphorically speaking, that's what I mean. He's addicted to debt. He's addicted to borrowing, of which the debt is not willing to pay back. In some of my episodes this week or next week, I will come and talk about Uganda's debt crisis. But where things are heading, fellow Ugandans, it is not good. Have a blessed one, and let's meet in the next one.